Okay, welcome back to another Hack the Box walkthrough. As you can see on this one, this control machine that we're going to be doing today, I have only got the user flag so far, so we're going to be going through getting root together. I will edit out any really long, tedious bits where I get kind of stuck or go down a huge rabbit hole, but I'll give you a kind of summary of whatever I've edited out, because I don't want this to just be hours long if I get stuck. This one is actually rated hard on the difficulty scale. So far I would say it's probably the higher end of medium, but yeah, maybe the root part will be really difficult. So anyway, let's get started with the user side. We'll just do an nmap scan to begin with to see which ports are open. And we'll do -V for the verbose output, -T4 to make it slightly faster, and we'll do the first 6,000 ports as usual. And because I'm on VIP, this is pretty quick now. There we go, that's done. And we only got 3 ports. So port 80, website, port 135, RPC, and then port 3306, which this is saying is MySQL. So let's just see if we telnet in to the IP address, was it 167 I think it was? And then we'll try 3306 for MySQL, see what we get. We get nothing in there, okay? Oh no, eventually we get our IP address is not allowed to connect to this MariaDB server. I think MariaDB is just the kind of backend name of MySQL. So there we go, we know we're not going to be able to access this remotely, so that's one port down that we don't need to look at the moment. Port 135 there's not really a lot we can do with, and port 80, so there's a website running on this, so let's go to that website. See what we get. We get a nice responsive website. We've got an email field, can we put some SQL injection or something in there? No, it looks like that's just kind of a dummy thing that just reloads the page automatically. Yeah, and we've got a thing here saying admin, so that seems like it's going to be useful. And what do we get here? Header missing, access denied. Please ensure you go through the proxy to access this page. So that gives us a hint straight away that we need to find some kind of, or we need to do something with proxy. So let's just make a note in our notes here. We'll just say proxy required for admin page. And let's see what else we've got. Is there anything, in fact, let's just have a look at the source code, see if there's anything interesting there. No, nothing on that. Let's go back to the main website and let's just have a look at the source code and see if there's anything interesting. And straight away we see this comment saying to do, import products, link to new payment system, enable SSL, and then it gives us an SMB share. Now, I got pretty stuck on this part the first time I went through this, I'll be honest, because I thought this IP address here was just like the original IP address of the machine. Before it was actually uploaded to Hack the Box and they changed the IP addresses. So obviously when you build a box, you just do it on your own network with your own IP addresses, and then Hack the Box will change it to their 10.10 range when they get the machine. So I thought this IP here, because it's obviously not one of the Hack the Box machine IPs, I thought the author had just not realized that Hack the Box were going to have to change the machine IP or something like that, which I thought was a bit strange that Hack the Box would let that kind of slip through and that the author wouldn't realize that. So it seemed a bit odd, but I thought, well, it doesn't make any sense for it to be anything else because we can't access any other IP addresses. There's no, I can't go to that share because it's not on the Hack the Box network. So I thought, well, maybe it just means there's this MyFiles share on the machine. But we already saw that SMB is not enabled here, and I can confirm if we try and go to it, it doesn't let us in. So I thought there's not a lot we can do with that, so I kind of ignored that. But it turns out the idea here, what the author is going for, is that is the IP address of the admin's machine that connects to this web server and logs in, with this admin thing here. Kind of unrealistic to me because the admin's not going to have an SMB share on their machine with a static IP address with some SSL certificates in it. So I kind of didn't look at it that way, but that's what it's telling us. So what we need to do is combine that IP address with the fact that this wants us to go through a proxy, because then we can kind of deduce that if we make it look like we're coming from this IP address going through a proxy, we'll be allowed in here. Now again, it's a bit of an assumption there, but that is how it works. So we're going to open Burp Suite, which if you're not familiar with is a tool that lets you inspect and modify HTTP headers and HTTP requests. So we're going to open that. We'll just do start burp with all the usual defaults. And then we also need to go into our proxy settings. I'll just type in proxy into the start menu. And we need to set it to actually use our own machine on port 8080 because that's what Burp Suite runs its proxy on. So now that's started, we'll go into the proxy section. I'm just going to turn intercept off because we don't want it to sort of stop every single HTTP request and let us inspect it. We just want to see them all once they're done. So now we're going to go to this again. We'll just press F5. refresh that, it'll do it through the proxy this time, so we can see that's appeared there. And now we can go in and tweak that. So we're going to right click on it and do send to repeater, which means that now we can just keep sending this over and over again. So if we just send, we can tweak it and keep sending it, and it'll just give us the output every time. We don't have to refresh the web page or anything like that, and we've got full control over it. So what we're going to do to make it look like we're going through a proxy is go to the headers tab, and what I did here, because I'm not super familiar with this stuff, is I just looked at HTTP proxy headers on Google. Like, is there anything? Here we've got to turn off the proxy. You can be clever with Burp Suite and make it so that it only uses the proxy for certain websites and stuff like that, but I'm lazy and I just turn it on and off. I think I went on to the Wikipedia article originally, and we search for proxy, just F3 to look through them all. So we've got this one called forwarded, which discloses original information of a client connecting to a web server through a HTTP proxy. So that sounds useful. And we've got forwarded for, I think I tried that one, it didn't work. Proxy authorization doesn't really help us. There's this one here, X forwarded for, de facto standard for identifying the originating IP address of a client connecting to a web server through an HTTP proxy. Now it says it's superseded by that forwarded one that we looked at a second ago, but I guess not everything implements that, I don't know. Maybe you can use that, but when I tried it, like I said, it didn't work. So we're gonna use this X forwarded for header, so we'll just copy that, and we'll go into Burp Suite, and we'll just add a new header. We'll call it X forwarded for, and then the value we're going to set to that IP address that we got from the source code. So let's go back to there, copy that. I'm feeling lazy today, I'm copy and pasting everything. And we'll put that in there, and now if we press enter and then we send that again, we'll see that now we actually get a web page back. So what we're going to do to make that actually work through the web browser is if we go to proxy and we go to options and we scroll all the way down, there's a section where you can match and replace parts of the request. So what we're going to do is add, I'm going to say in the request header, because that's what we're trying to do. We don't want to match anything, we just want to, like it says, leave blank to add a new header. So we're going to replace it with the header of X forwarded for, and then the IP address. And then hopefully that will be enough for this to work. I think we might have to have intercept on for that to work. I can't remember. Let's try. Let's just try anyway. And we'll go through the proxy server again, and then we'll go back to here and see if we can just refresh and see if it lets us in. It does let us in, so you don't actually have to have intercept on, which is good. So that gets us to this page, which looks like it just lets us search through a database. Let's just put something in and just see what happens. Search, we get no products found. So it looks like that's searching this database. Let's just see if we just type cloud, does it find? No, it doesn't. So it doesn't look like the search works particularly well, but whatever. Let's just try straight away just to see if there's any SQL injection exploit here. Let's just put a single quote or single speech mark, whatever you want to call it, and then we'll click search and see what happens. And sure enough, we get an error, which means that this is probably vulnerable to SQL injection. Now, I'll explain how this works when we go through it, but let's just do a quick example. Let's say that, and then select star from MySQL.users, is it? I can't remember. I'm going to have to just quickly Google MySQL users table. So MySQL, it does just say MySQL.user. So let's try that. Where were we? MySQL.user. Let's see what we get from that. And we get a list of users. So let me explain, if you're new to SQL injection, how and why that works. Obviously we can take these usernames and these passwords. The column names are not correct, but we can pretty easily assume that these are passwords because we've got usernames here, and we can try and just crack them online with something like CrackStation. In fact, let's just do that quickly first. We'll take this Hector one. Let's just turn the proxy off completely. Try that again. There we go, I'm not a robot. And we get the password decoded from that hash. So let's just copy that. So we've got username was Hector. So we'll just put username Hector, password of that. And we can try and crack these other ones as well. So we'll do username manager. Stick that in there as well. And we get this let me in password. Classic. Yeah, roots, I think when I tried this originally, I don't think we could crack this one, but let's just see. Yeah, see that one's not found. And I think it was the same for all these other ones up here, because they are the same as this, so they're all the same. But so we've got 2 passwords, 2 usernames out of that. And they are for SQL, so we don't know if that's really going to get us anything because we can already kind of access the SQL database through this SQL injection. But it's possible those passwords and usernames have been reused elsewhere. So yeah, let's look at exactly why this works. Why does typing that in let us do whatever we want? So if we look at how the SQL command is supposed to look, so imagine this is what the website is running. So forget any of our input for now. This is what the website is running. It's going to say select star, so all columns from, let's call it products, like whatever the products table is called. I can't type still. So let's just say this table name that it's looking at here is called products. So select star from products where, and then it'll say like the certain column, so say a name equals, and then whatever we type in here. So if we typed, server or something, whatever. So then it would say name equals server, because that's what we typed in. And then that's what the command would look like. So we've only got control over this part here. We can't affect the rest of it. But what we can do is instead of entering a legitimate bit of text like that, we can just change it so that we put a single quote mark there. So that ends this string here. So you see normally we'd have a string between 2 of them. So now we just ended that string. And then we can put a semicolon, which means like that's the end of this whole SQL command. We're going to start a new SQL command because fortunately for us, you can run multiple like select statements in an SQL command and it will return all of them. So we're going to say here, that's the end of that command. So all that original command is doing is saying select everything from the products table where the name equals an empty string. So that's just not going to do anything now. So now we start our new command, which if you remember the whole thing that we put in was this. So we start a new command, which is going to say select star from mysql.user. So we're using that user table. And then we put a hash at the end because the hash in SQL means everything after this is just a comment. So, in legitimate use, you would use that to actually explain what certain SQL commands are doing for other people to read. In reality, what we're doing is trimming off this last part here. Because if we didn't do that, then this whole thing would fail with just an invalid syntax error because there shouldn't be a random string quote here. So we use the hash to just comment out anything after our malicious command that we're entering here. But now that we've got those usernames and passwords, we haven't got anywhere we can use them yet. Because if you remember on the port scan, we've only got these 3 ports to work with. So we haven't got anything else where we can log in really. Because our IP address wasn't even allowed in to the MySQL service. We had no option to log in or anything. So yeah, there's not a lot we can do. So we've got to carry on with this SQL injection. We know that the website is running PHP, and we know it's a Windows machine. I guess we don't know that from like an attacker's point of view. We only know that because the Hack the Box website tells us it's Windows. So a fairly safe assumption is that it's probably running IIS. Now that is an assumption. It doesn't have to be running IIS for this web service. But we're going to take that assumption and combine it with another assumption, which is that IIS is all installed in the default locations. And we're going to try and dump a file into the root of the web directory here, the web server, that's going to let us execute whatever commands we want. So like I said, we know it's running PHP, so we can use that to our advantage because PHP can accept input parameters in a URL, and then it can execute system commands as well. So if we can write a malicious PHP file, we can get it to execute whatever we want, basically. So let's Google SQL create file, because that's what we want to do. How to create a text file using SQL script with text. Again, we're going to turn Burp Suite off. One day I'll learn how to actually exclude stuff, like I say, but today is not that day. There we go, so now we're in. Okay, so they're using XP CMD shell, which is not what I want to do because that's probably not enabled. MySQL create file from query. Let's try that. Here we go. So this is what I ended up finding originally, I think. Yeah, those other ones were making it way more complicated than it needs to be. So there's this command called into out file, which lets you create a text file with the results from an SQL query. So we can use that to our advantage and use that to basically run that in here, get it to create a PHP file that's got the contents of whatever we want. And the way we can do that is if we go into here, we're going to say, so the start of our SQL command will be that to do the usual stuff. And then we're going to say select, and then we want to put in our PHP code here. So I'll leave that blank for now. And then we say into out file, and then this is where I'm going to make quite a big assumption of where IS is installed. And again, we don't even know if it is IS, but we'll do c/initpub www root / and then we'll give it some obscure name 123.5.php, just because I don't want other people to stumble across that. Like, you've got to be conscious on these boxes that you're not the only person attacking this. So if we just dump a new PHP file in the root of the website, now anyone's going to be able to find that with like dirbuster or whatever. So we'll give it a kind of obscure name to hopefully make it a bit less easy to find. And for that reason, I'm not sure if this is the intended route of doing this. I assume it's something pretty similar, but yeah, I don't know if this is exactly what the author intended, for people to all create their own file in the root of the website. So the important bit now is what are we actually going to put in here? What's the PHP contents that we want to go in there? Now, I can't remember exactly where I found this originally, but I've just copied and pasted this from my kind of useful random notes text file. Basically what this is a PHP script or PHP file that will take an input in the URL. You'll see how this works in a second, so don't worry if it doesn't make sense. Take an input in the URL and then execute it, because the system command in PHP just basically passes whatever is in between these brackets to the underlying operating system and says just execute this, like start a new process with whatever this is. So the text in this case, we could just hard code it in here to be, you know, some certain command like who am I or whatever we wanted to run. But to make it a bit more flexible, we're going to say $get, which means it'll get a parameter. So let's look at like a PHP. It's like in a PHP URL, you might have a parameter here like user equals blah. So the parameter is user and then the input is blah. So what we're doing here is we're saying, oops, wrong one. And what we're doing here is saying get the parameter called cmd input. So user would be cmd input here. And then blah would be the result of that. So this whole text here would get replaced with just whatever we put after the equal sign, basically, if that makes sense. So like I say, don't worry, that'll make a lot more sense in a second. Let's just copy and paste this into here and see if it works to start with. I didn't put the hash at the end and I didn't enable the proxy, so that's not a great start. Hash, and then we'll see how we go. So we've got general error, so that's not great. Did I mess something up? Probably. And the only thing that I've got different in my notes is that I had that there. We're using forward slashes as well, just because that's what SQL wants. I think if you use backslashes, it treats it as a special character, so it's just easier to do that. Okay, so it says that file already exists, so it did create it, even though we got a general error the first time, so that's a bit weird. Maybe just because it didn't actually return any results, that's why we got the error the first time. But anyway, it says that file exists now, so if we try and go to that, view12345.php, and see what we get. So it looks like it's a valid file. So now we're going to put cmd input, because that's what we said our variable name was going to be in the PHP script. And we'll just do who am I, see if that works. And it does. So we've now got code execution on the remote machine, basically. So now we've got like general, information here. We could put in normal directory commands and things like that. It's pretty limited, as you can see. It's pretty awkward. So what we want to do is get a proper shell from this, really. So I've got netcat on this share on my machine, so we're just going to tell it to run it from my IP address. So it's going to be 10.10.14.40, and I'm actually going to do this through Burp Suite just because, and we'll send it to repeater, just because it saves having to like encode everything in the URL properly, because we're going to use some special characters. So let's go back to Burp Suite, and the headers, parameters, sorry, not headers. We'll change this value to be what we want. So it's going to be my IP address, 10.10.14.40, 10.10.14.40 slash new share, I think I called it, slash nc.exe, and then my IP address that we want it to go to, 14.40, oops, that's too many 10s, 14.40, the port that we're going to listen on, which I'll just do 4455, and then ecmd. Okay, so that's going to put all the special characters and stuff in, like I said, that we needed. Although it's actually, I always thought a backslash was a special character. Maybe not. Maybe it's just the spaces, so it wouldn't have been that hard to do. Anyway, that's a little tip there. If you can't be bothered to encode things properly in URL, you can just stick it in here and it does it for you. So if we send that after we start a netcat listener, let's just go start netcat, and do LVP 4455. And now we'll see if that works. We'll send that to the remote machine. And we do indeed get reverse shell connection here. So now we can do the same stuff that we were doing in the web server, but it's a lot easier to see and use now. So if we go to cd/, and we'll have a look and see if we've got anything interesting. We see, obviously, we did guess right that IIS was installed in the default location. We already know that was true because otherwise none of that would have worked. So let's go into users, first of all, and just see what we've got in there. We can see there's one called Hector. So that's probably going to match up with the username and password that we got here. So let's see if we do netstats. It's ANO, is it? We'll see if PowerShell, yeah, so PowerShell's listening, but it wasn't allowed through the firewall. So we'll use port tunneling again. I've got a video explaining port tunneling or port forwarding in a lot of detail, which I'll leave a link to in the description. So I'm not going to go over that now. But yeah, don't worry if you don't understand what's going on here. It's explained thoroughly in that video. So definitely go watch that if you have no idea what's happening here. So we're going to do the same thing that we did before. We're going to say from my IP address 14.40 /new share /pt.exe. No, this is called porttunnel.exe. This must be before I changed it. We'll try use that version. I can't remember if that version works or not. But and we'll say -s my IP address 10.10.14.40 and then -p5985. So that's the port that we're going to forward. Again, we need to start this on my machine though. So let's go to new share port tunnel and then -p5985, and we'll probably have to stop the PowerShell services on my machine first. So let's just find Windows Remote Management. We'll just stop that so that this program here can actually listen on that port. Right, so that's listening, and now we'll run that, and we should get a connection. Yep, that's connected. So now, when we connect with PowerShell to my machine, it should enter PS session, local host. So again, we're connecting to my own local machine there. We'll do credential. It's going to be Hector. We'll put in his password, which was elite hexor. And that should start to send things through the tunnel. Yeah, there we go. And we should get connected. Now again, I can't remember if this version... Oh no, this must be the right version because it works straight away. There was an older version of that program that I wrote, that port tunnel program, that had a bit of a bug that made it really slow on this first part. But this works. We're in as Hector, so let's go back to his desktop and see if there's a user flag on there. There is indeed. So we can do gc to get the user.text. And there we go, we've got the user flag. So yeah, I quite like that path to the user flag there. I think it's not too difficult. The proxy thing, like I say, tripped me up for a bit. The SQL injection stuff was fun and pretty sort of standard. Like I say, I'm not sure if you're supposed to create a file in the root of the web folder like I did, but that's what I did, so I can't tell you anything else other than the way that I did it. So yeah, that is the user flag, and again, if you don't understand the port tunneling thing, definitely go and watch the other video on that's in the description. So now we've got the fun task of trying to get root, and I have absolutely no idea where to start with this, so let's just start by looking around, I guess. I did see one little tip on the forums when I was on there posting about the user stuff. A lot of people were talking about services, so I'm going to assume it's got something to do with Windows services, but I'm guessing we probably won't have permission. Yeah, we don't have permission to enumerate services. So I'm not sure exactly where we're going to start with that. Let's have a look in program files to start with. You've got to put the speech marks. Anything interesting in there? We can look in the SQL database some more maybe, but I don't know, it kind of seems like we've done everything we need to do from that. Let's look at program files x86. I don't know why I always forget to put speech marks around until afterwards. Pretty much the same stuff. Is that where we were? No, it's slightly different. Yeah, nothing jumping out at me as being super interesting in here. We can look at the PHP stuff some more, but let's just do ls/force. What have we got in there? Again, this is all just going to be normal SQL stuff, and I feel like we're kind of done with the SQL database side of things. I might be wrong, like, could definitely be wrong, but let's have a look. In program data, don't know what that reg ID thing is. The rest of it all looks pretty standard though. I would say that's just general nonsense, not anything of use. So there's nothing jumping out at me on the file system. Where's Microsoft folder? No, that's just going to be like, yeah, it's just going to be PowerShell rubbish that's been put there. I think to help us look around though, I'm going to do a shameless plug and I'm going to run a program that I wrote recently that makes looking around a bit quicker and easier, because you see all this typing, all this change directory stuff. It's pretty slow to look through folders. Like all we're doing here is just looking at folder names and file names. Like it's kind of tedious to have to do all the typing and keep going up and down levels and stuff. So I'm going to run the program that I wrote. If you don't know what this program is, you'll see in a second, but it's essentially like a netcat reverse shell, but a lot easier and quicker to use. So we'll start this on port 4444, and then on the server, so you can see I've copied the server side into here, and we're going to get it to run from here. So we'll just do what we did before, 10.10.14.40, new share slash vprev.exe, and then we just need to tell it to connect back to me, just like with netcat 40 on port 4444. And now we should get a connection through. Here we go. So now we can explore things a lot quicker and easier. So we can jump into folders and look around much quicker and easier than all that typing. And we can jump back to specific points. So yeah, this is something that I've been working on for a couple of weeks. You can see we get some basic information about the OS and stuff here. I did a video on this recently, like giving a quick demo of this. But yeah, this is a good time to kind of show it off because I actually want to use it. So what have we got? Are there any other drives? Let's start with that. No, there's only a C drive. So that's just a default folder that you can't actually get into. inetpub, we've already had a look around here. God, this is so much easier than just typing. This is the first time I've actually used it like live on a Hack the Box machine. I've only ever been using it just to test the program before, but this is great. So what have we got in here? Let's download some of these and have a look at them, shall we? There's no file associated with that, so let's just associate Notepad with that. Notepad, there we go. So here we can see the thing that was actually checking for that X-forwarded for HTTP header. So that's interesting. But yeah, I don't think there's going to be anything in these files really that are going to help us, to be honest. But we'll have a quick look around. Let's go back to that. In fact, we'll change that to open automatically. So we've got our PHP file there. Oh, there's other people's PHP files here, maybe. Oh, this guy's gone really obfuscated. But that does make it look like other people have been dumping files into there. So maybe I did do the right thing there with just dumping a file there. Database.php, anything useful in here? So we've got that same manager username and password there. I mean, maybe if we connect to the SQL database and just look and see if there's any other tables or anything in there. I think I already did that. And we already looked at that one. Uploads. Okay, we've got... Maybe this is what you were supposed to do. Ooh, we can't access that. That's interesting. Okay. So yeah, somebody's dumped some stuff in there. I don't think that's supposed to be there. Okay, somebody's got a very similar system to us. Sorry, I'm getting distracted here just looking at what other people are doing. But yeah, I don't think there's anything else in here that's of use to us. Just make sure nothing in here. Nope. So that's kind of a dead end. The SQL database side of things, again, I think is a dead end. No, nothing there. And again, I've kind of got in the back of my head that I heard people saying there's a service or something that you have to exploit or like replace the executable for or something like that. But people were saying that like it's very, very much trial and error. And I don't know, it doesn't seem right to me that the box maker would expect you to just go through every service, especially when we can't enumerate services at the moment. This part of the program isn't really finished yet at all. I literally made this last night. So this bit is not really working yet, but it gives us a rough idea of what's running. I'm just looking for anything that stands out, really, anything weird that might be a hint of like what service or something that we're supposed to look at. NAS serve. That's interesting. What's that? It's a Microsoft executable. Oh, okay, it's nothing interesting. Okay, I've probably edited out most of the looking around that I was just doing because that took me a long time. But yeah, eventually after looking in all sorts of different places on the file system, and also after seeing a vague hint on the forum that mentioned about history or something. It said something about like, don't forget the history of the user or something like that. Started looking at all sorts of things, eventually looked for PowerShell history and found that there's this file here that is mentioned. So if we go to that, we want to go C hector / app data / roaming. You know what, let's just do it in here. Microsoft Windows PowerShell. Because read line, and then we have this file here. Now what this has in it is not a lot really. I guess this is just meant to be like a hint for where to look next. Now unfortunately the registry part of my program is not done yet, so we're going to have to do this in the kind of more old school way. But we can just start a new command prompt or a new PowerShell prompt from here. So let's just do reg query hklm /system / control set. Okay, I mean it doesn't really give us anything, does it? Let's do PowerShell instead actually, and we'll run what it's actually doing here. See what we get. Let's make this a bit bigger so we can see what we're looking at here. So yeah, it's just telling us the sub keys under the current control set. So that's not particularly useful. What about the ACL? Authenticate users, read, authenticate users, allow, and then that, which is going to be one of the generic permissions if PowerShell can't display it properly. And we've got some random SID there. Well, it's a built-in one. System administrators. Got this SID here. What is my SID? My SID ends with 1000. Okay, so that's not me. So I think the only hope we've got here is if this is actually something useful. So let's do PowerShell permission. This is so annoying just because PowerShell's a bit shit. It can't figure out all the permissions, so it just gives you a number instead of telling you which permissions are set. So what we need to do is take that number, turn it into binary essentially, and then see how that corresponds to the different permissions that you can have in a registry permissions entry. So we're looking for basically just the one that is set to just the highest bit set here. So it's the topmost bit. But these are only giving us it in like half, or like 16-bit chunks rather than 32-bit chunks. So like MSDN, registry. There we go, this is what I was looking for. So the top one is just going to be generic read, so that's great. After all that's saying is that we've just got read permission as well as that one. So that's not any use whatsoever. Cool. Just to explain that, if you didn't follow, so the number that it's showing us there, when you look at that as binary, is just this top bit here being set. And as you can see, this top bit here, so this is the 32 bits of that number here. And the top bit is just generic read. So yeah, that's not any use to us. Basically all it's saying is that we've got read permission, which we already knew from that anyway. So I don't quite understand what this is supposed to be hinting us to look at. Obviously it wants us to do something with all this. And we'll go back to reg query and do services and see what's in there. There's a lot of stuff. Or is this supposed to hint at like this is how you could script checking the ACL on all of the sub keys? Maybe that's what they're going for with that. Wait, why do we not have the last bit there? What's going on there? Oh, we do, it just didn't scroll down. Yeah, maybe we're supposed to script this and see if any of them have got weak permissions. Maybe that's what that's hinting at. I reckon that's probably it, because why else would we have a thing that's saying how to get child items and how to get permissions? So I guess we're supposed to stick this in a loop. This would be really nice if I'd finished this registry section and we could just check it all through the GUI. But I guess we'll stick it in a loop. Let's Google, I haven't done PowerShell loops for a while. Let's do PowerShell for each $subkey in get child item. Hopefully it allows you to do that there. Let's do it how it shows in the example, just to be good. Do that, and then we want a curly brace because we're pretending to be C#, and then we're going to say get ACL for the current one, so services or subkey. Subkey, will that work? Let's try that, who knows? Nope. So I say cannot find path, blah, 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 because it does not exist. But it does. But it really does. Why? What do you mean? Oh, is it because... Yeah, that's annoying. I think it's because you can't just do get ACL and then the path. It has to be like HKLM : Yeah, so you see we've got the colon there. That's going to be really annoying because get child item doesn't bring it back in that format. It brings it back without the colon. So then we try and call get ACL on it and it doesn't work. Okay, so a little bit of Googling. And it looks like we can use this to do that. Try that. Yeah, it can't go any worse than the last few, can it? There we go. Finally. Finally, we have a ton of data to go through. Great. Well, that is a lot. Okay. So now we've got all this to look through, which I'm not sure is great. I mean, we can look for like authenticated users full control or something like that. We could just try and search for that. Why have we got one straight away that's got Hector allow full control? Oh wait, Hector's allowed full control on all of them. Wait a minute. Yeah, he's allowed full control over all of these. Right, so we probably didn't need to spend like an hour figuring out all this stuff. We could have just inspected the permissions on one of them and we would have seen that Hector's got full control over all of them for some bizarre reason. Okay, so we've got full control over all these subkeys, but does that really help us with anything? Or what can we do with that? So let's just have a look. I'm just going to have a look on my machine and see what those subkeys look like. So local machine, system, current control set, services. So like what kind of things are under here? Oh right, okay, so image path, so we can change. Okay, so we can change the file that's going to be launched when a service starts. But then how are we going to restart the service? Because we're not going to have permission to restart many of the services, are we? Yeah, because we could change any of these then. We've got permission to change the image path for all these services, but we don't have permission to restart any of them, I wouldn't have thought. I mean, we can test that theory. Let's just do sc.exe stop Windows Update service. Access denied. Great. Stop bits. Access denied. Yeah, so we're not going to have permission to start any of them, so I guess we're going to have to loop through the permissions. Oh, we can't loop through permissions of the services because we can't enumerate services. And we don't even have permission to enumerate all the services. Although I guess we just enumerated all the services by doing that list, haven't we? This list here gives us a list of all the names of all the services. So do we just loop through all these names and see which ones we've got permission to start or stop? Let's do that instead. Let's delete that. And then let's run this. That's finished. So these are all of the subkey names in that registry key. So these are all the services. Now some of them aren't going to be actual services that we would see in the Windows Service Manager. Some of them are going to be like drivers and system things that are just running in the background that we can't ever really interact with. But some of them are going to be legitimate services. So we've got to find one that we have permission to actually start and stop. Now I've actually done some coding before against services in .NET, so I know how to do this in .NET code, how to see if we've got permission to open any of these. But let's try and do it in PowerShell. Oh, not WMI. WMI is the worst. It's like the most unreliable and slow system ever. Oh right, there's a security key under here, is there? No, there isn't. Oh, security, there we go. Right, so the security descriptor for each service is actually under there anyway. So, we could just read that directly from the registry. So I think we basically want to use that in our loop. So we're going to go through the loop. We're going to get the child name of each service. Let's scrap this for now. So we'll get the child name, and then we want to see if there's a subkey underneath it that's called security. Yeah, so this part here, we'll just steal that. Let's just steal this guy's whole code, because why not? Steal that, stick it in a script, SM1, and then we're going to copy it over to the remote machine. So let's just upload that. We can just drag and drop, and it will upload it to the remote machine. So now, if we go back to our PowerShell session, and we're going to app data /temp. Now we've got that file. We can do dot. Try to remember the correct thing. See, PSM1. Let's rename that to just a PS1 file, and then we'll try do that again. Okay, that works. So that's saying that we have authenticated users, query, start. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, so you can start it, but you can't stop it. that's annoying. So we need to do that, but for every service. So we want to go back to here. We want to change that to just do it for every service that we've got. Right, so after a lot of messing around, I finally ended up with this script to make things a little bit easier. So basically we're doing the same thing as before, where we get all the registry keys from that services key, we loop through each of them, we use that script that we got online to get the ACL. So that's the permissions from the service that is named with the name of the current subkey that we're on in the loop, if that makes sense. So we're looping through all the subkeys, each subkey is named with the name of a service, so we're taking each of those names of the subkeys and passing that into the get service ACL script that we got online, which is expecting the name of a service. And then that'll get the permissions for that service. And then for each entry in the ACL, because obviously there's multiple permissions in the ACL, for each of those, we check to see if we have the right to start service. And then we check to see if the account that's been granted the permission has users in it anywhere. So we're checking for authenticated users and just the users group. If not, then it'll just continue the loop. It'll just move on to the next one. So if we ever get to this point, then we've passed those two checks already. And then we can output the current service key name or registry key name, which will be the service. And then also output the actual part of the access control list that we're currently in on this second sort of inner loop. So I've just run that. Obviously it fails for all the registry keys that don't have services associated with them, as we expect. But if we open this up now, the output file, we get this, which is a little bit easier because now it's only including services that we have permission to start. What I also want to do actually is add something to it so that we check to see if the service is disabled. So we can do that with sc.exe/qc. So we do that for the Windows Update service. We get the start type here, and that will say disabled if the service is set to disabled. So this one's set to just start on demand, like when somebody manually starts it. And we could probably use this service, to be honest. Depends if it's running at the moment. Let's see. This is like my default service that I always check and everything. Yes, that's stopped. And I think we have permission to start it. Let's check in our list of outputs. In fact, let's also add a check to this to say if we don't have permission to stop the service. So, stop. Because I want to see if there are any services that I just missed that we did actually have permission to stop. So let's do that. We'll have to delete the file that has our output in it. Let's paste that in there. Again, it's going to run through and fail on all the usual ones. Alright, so that's finished now. So if we open that up, so there's a few more services than I thought where we actually have permission to stop and start them. So let's have a look through each of them, I guess. But again, some of them are going to be disabled, so we already looked at a few of these. I just want to see if there's any that kind of stand out as being services that we're probably supposed to exploit. VPN. Right, so there's not that many services that we have permission to stop and start. But like I say, I want to change this so that we're ignoring disabled services. So let's add another check. So we want to get the output, and we'll just call this query output, because that's going to be sc.exe query config, and then the name of the current service that we're looking at. And then we want to see if that contains, so we want to say if this query output has the word disabled in it. I'm not sure if that's case sensitive, I doubt it. Actually, we don't want the not thing there, we want to say if it's not disabled. So we want to say if it does have disabled in it, then continue the loop, ignore that one. So let's try that again with that in there. Okay, let's see what we got. So I don't think that worked because we've got the exact same list as before. So that would imply that all of these services that we've got in this list are not disabled, but I know for a fact some of them are. Like, let's take this one, for example, and just do sc query config. Okay, so it's not disabled. But I'm sure when we try to start that, yeah, it says it can't be started because it's disabled or because there's no device associated with it. Yeah, that's very odd because everything looks valid in that. It's got a binary to execute. It's not set to disabled. It might be something to do with this user share process template thing. Let's add another check that says if it doesn't have that in the name, or in the output, sorry. Oh, we didn't output anything that time. Why is that? That sounds like all of them matched that. So maybe all of the services that we can actually have permission to start and stop are all these per user template service things, which I need to look into and figure out what on earth they actually are. But that would also explain why we have these kind of duplicate things where you've got just a random number at the end. That's probably because they're on a per user basis. So there's going to just be a random number appended for each user, I would guess. So let's have a look at the file. See if that is the case. So yeah, that one's a user shared process template thing. That one's user shared process template. So is that one. So is that one. So is that one. That one's user shared process instance. So we might be able to do something with the instances rather than the templates. Let's try that. That one's an instance as well. Yeah, I would guess a template you can't start, but an instance you probably can. That would make sense. So let's exclude just the word template from our search here. Let's try one of these. In theory, we can replace whatever it's running at. The thing is though, if it's a per user service, surely it's just running as our user account. Like, they've all got a blank service start name, which is where you'd normally see like local system or something like that. Which makes me think they're all just running as our user account, which isn't going to help us in any way. So these might be a bit of a dead end, these template instances. So now we're kind of back to the drawing board of just looking for services that we can start and just hoping that they're not already running, pretty much. So now we don't want to be able to stop services. I can't remember how you comment stuff out in PowerShell. So let's take that check out. We just want to be able to start the service. We want to make sure it's not disabled. We also want to do, we'll just use query output again. We can reuse that variable because we're not going to use it further down. So we'll just say that's going to be sc.exe query and then the name. So this is different to QC. QC is query config. Query is just general query, like is the service running? So we'll do that, and then we want to say if it's actually running. So if not running, if it doesn't contain the word running, then continue. Well, sorry, no, we want it to actually exclude services that are running already. I'm being stupid, sorry. again, this is taking absolutely hours to get this to work exactly how I want it to. We could have probably manually done this by now, but here we go. Hopefully 56th time is the charm. And we just get a list of services that aren't running, that we have permission to start, and that aren't one of these shared user processes, so we don't gain anything from those, obviously. Right, let's see what we got. Okay, not a lot. We've got do SVC, whatever that is. Windows Update Service. And those other ones that I don't really recognize. Do SVC, I'm wondering what that is. Let's just have a look. Oh, so it is a Windows service, it's some networking service. Delivery optimization. Yeah, we don't need that. Let's try and override that. In fact, no, let's use Windows Update because that's the one that's definitely not going to break stuff. The only problem I've got with this though is once we start the service, we can't stop it again because we don't have permission to stop it. So like we only get one shot at this, which doesn't seem like the right way to do it because, I mean, one, if you just get your command wrong or whatever, then it's not going to work. But also, I'm sure I saw somebody in the forum say someone said that it wasn't very repeatable, and somebody said that no, they could just do it over and over again, the same method, like 10 times in a row, which we can't do using this method. But I can't see any other, I mean, I must be missing something, but I can't see, we can set the security, but it doesn't take effect. And these are the only services that we can start. All the services that we can stop and start are no use. So we're left with only these ones that we can start, which means we only get one go at this, which is kind of annoying. But yeah, I don't know. I must be missing something. I'll be curious to see what other people did. But anyway, let's try this. Let's do. I need to look at PowerShell. How we actually set PowerShell set registry value. That cool. That's pretty straightforward. And the name is going to be image path, and the value is going to be. Oops. I guess we'll just get it to run netcat. We could get it to run this program. Yeah, let's get it to run this program. Cool, that has copied. So now we can tell the service in our PowerShell that we're going to run. We can tell it to run, so it's going to be c/vbtemp/vbref. And then do we just put, I'm just trying to look how these are set. Image path, yeah, we don't have to enclose anything in speech marks or anything like that, we just put the arguments straight after it. So that should do the trick. Let's see. Okay, it seems to have worked. So now, I mean, let's just check that it's actually there. I'm going to do something weird. I'm going to use PowerShell to set it, and then I'm going to use normal reg query to actually read it. But yeah, we want to grab that, paste that in, take that off. So where is image path? Image path. Okay, so that's definitely set to the right thing. Maybe we should put the executable name, like the file extension. In fact, we probably definitely should do that. Let's set that again. So now it is set to the correct thing. Yeah, cool. So I think we're good to go. That's definitely my IP address, isn't it? 14.40, because obviously if we only seem to get one chance at this, which seems terrible, I'm not sure this will even work because it's not a service executable. It might just crash straight away. But let's see, we're not listening yet, so let's start listening. Let's just do start WAU serve. Let's see what happens. We get a connection. It works. It works. Hallelujah. Let's quickly get the root flag before anything breaks. Desktop root. Gimme. There we go. We did it finally. But I don't like the way we did it. So yeah, there's that. Phase hash. Difficult, I'm going to say. Quite difficult. 8. Cool. We did it. We got root. But yeah, I don't like that because, oh yeah, connection to server lost. That didn't last long, did it? Wow. Is that this one that's dead? Yeah, that's dead. So we did good getting that pretty quickly. So is that because this has, yeah, so that makes sense. Because when you launch a service, it goes into like a starting state, and it'll start, I think it's 30 seconds is the timeout. And then after that, it'll just close, if the service hasn't responded, which this won't do because the actual executable we're running, which is the server side of this executable here, that is not meant to be a service, so it doesn't respond to the service control requests in time. So this will just fail and kill the process. In fact, I didn't think it killed the process. I thought it just left it running, but just gave you a message saying it didn't respond in time. But yeah, apparently it just stops it if it doesn't respond within 30 seconds. So that's why we only have 30 seconds basically to deal with this. Actually, I guess because that failed, because that failed, we could just start that again, couldn't we? Yeah. So this is kind of repeatable because of that. That's not something I considered. Like I said, I thought when these things timed out, because I've seen it plenty of times before in here, when you try and start a service, sometimes it'll do that thing where it just ticks along the progress bar for this thing will just go along really slowly, and then eventually it'll just say the service stopped because it didn't respond in time. But yeah, I forgot that it actually says it stopped. I thought it just kind of gave a general warning saying it didn't respond quickly. I thought it carried on leaving it running, but it doesn't. So because of that, that actually makes this all possible. And if I'd realized that to start with, we could have saved ourselves a lot of time and just looked for services that we could start and skip the whole trying to find services we could stop as well and stop worrying about how it would all work. But yeah, so that's interesting. I guess if you wanted to make this like a permanent thing, you'd have to have your service executable, this one. You could either make it a proper service, that's not too difficult to do, so it actually responds to the start request, or you could just have this launch another process really quickly. In fact, let's try that. Let's start a new one of this. We'll put it on 4488 again. And as soon as it launches, we'll try start a new process. Oh, so it's already running. Okay, well that kind of throws a spanner in the works. Because the last one should have failed by now. Oops, wrong thing. Yes, that stayed running this time. So yeah, I don't understand why the first time it stopped itself after the 30 seconds, but this time it hasn't, when it's still running the same thing. I mean, unless somebody else has changed it, but I doubt it. What have we got for image path? Oh, it's set back to... Okay, so there's some kind of system in Windows that every now and then changes this back to the correct value? That's a new one on me. Yeah, so we'd have to set that quickly. Oh, we can't stop the service, can we? That's a problem now, because we started it again when it was set to the legitimate thing, so it didn't time out, and we're not going to have permission to stop it. Yeah, so now we are coming back to the same problem. But luckily, we already got the root flag quickly while it was starting the right one. So yeah, there's quite a lot of sort of moving parts in that you've got to get just right to have any kind of like sustainable shell there. Like if we didn't just jump in and quickly get the root flag, we'd have been a bit screwed here. But yeah, that'll do for this one. Sorry it's dragged on quite a long time. Like I say, I'll have edited out a lot of the really tedious bits. But yeah, it's probably a bit of a longer video than normal. But I thought it might be interesting for you guys to actually watch me like go through the motions. I mean, this one wasn't the best one because it was so awkward and hard. Definitely took me longer than some others. But yeah, let me know if you prefer this style where you kind of see me struggle, or if you'd rather just kind of see the end result and me explain why and how things work. Because I'm probably not doing a very good job of explaining why things are the way they are while I'm going through this and actually struggling. I'm much better at that when I've already done it before and I know exactly what I'm doing. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you prefer, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video.